Hey everybody, I got an image sent to me by one of the viewers of this channel, Gina from Arizona, and the image looks like this right here, and she was curious, how was that made? Is it made in Photoshop, or do you think it might even be a plugin? Are we ready for this one? Let's do it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, this is dedicated to photography and as a photo artist, pushing ourselves out of the box creatively. So number one, I want to thank you to one of the viewers, Gina. She had sent me an image, was wondering how this was actually done, and she came up with, was this done in liquify in Photoshop? So we're going to take a look at that in a minute, but here's what I want to talk about before I jump into this. We'll look at the image right here in Photoshop, and then I had to get a couple stock images to work with to build this. But before I get into it, when you get inspired by something that you go, ooh, I really like that, how did they do that? Well, you might have to break this down and sort of guess and do trial and error to figure it out. And don't worry about doing something exactly the same. You're inspired, come up with a concept that's close to that moves you in a direction to do something creatively. I'll give you an example. One of the biggest lessons I learned quite a few years ago, I happened to be invited, if anybody knows, because I talk about him once in a while, my number one mentor, Joel Grimes, and I had the privilege of actually, as an invite, coming to his house for a couple of days, working in his home studio. And one of the things that he showed me on the side that he was working on was doing something I did a few weeks ago, and that was using a gray background to create some artwork. And so I watched the steps and concepts, and I fell in love with it, but I didn't do anything with that for quite a while, for years, actually. And then a few months later, he came out with a tutorial. And what's interesting about the tutorial that he recorded, it was different than what he had showed me. In other words, about, again, I'm guessing 30% of the recorded video was different than what he showed me in his home to begin with. About 70% was a change. Why did he change it? Or 70% was the same, but 30% was different and changed. Why did he change it? Well, he understood a concept and was just redefining it. So an example that was given to me is, let's say you're a master chef. Typically, a master chef does not buy a cookbook and follow step by step to create a dish. He might do it the first time to experience that, but then he's going to modify that recipe slightly to put his own twist and variation in there that is now his. So hopefully that makes sense. So when you're looking at an image, don't worry about getting it exactly. It pushes you to start thinking creatively, how was that done? And you're going to end up putting your own flavor into the project. So again, Gina, thanks for sending this to me. And let's talk about what you had mentioned, and that is, did they use liquify? So let's take a look at this. Are we ready? Let's do it. Okay, once again, let's take a look at the reference image. And I'm not using Gina's last name. I didn't get permission to use her last name, so I'm just Gina from Arizona. And so this is the image were inspired. How, let's break this down. So she was thinking maybe liquify. Well, first of all, I need an image to start. So I don't have anything that's close to that. So I'm going to go to the open dialog box in Photoshop. And what I did was I had to go out and find a couple stock images. So I got a background image that looks like that, and this flower image that looks like that. So I'm going to multi-select the two, and I'm just holding down the Control key to multi-select the two. That would be Command on a Mac. And I'm just going to choose Open to open both of those images up. Now, what I'm going to do here, just let's talk about the background. If you can't find something with the colors that you want, like I try to get something that has the oranges and yellows, like the inspiration image that you had sent me. What if you could just find a raw like texture? It's all gritty and rough. As long as it has the colors you like, consider doing this, which I didn't have to do on this one, but you could consider doing this if you couldn't find something like that. Go to, let's go to Filter drop-down menu, go to Blur, and just choose like a motion blur. And then with the blur, because this is already blurred here, but you would just slide this all the way to the right Make sure it's set horizontally so the angle's set to 0. And it would blur out any, grunge and stuff, and it's just smearing those colors that maybe come up with the background that's more appropriate for you. So again, I'm going to cancel that. This is what I'm starting with. But again, the colors can be different. It's all up to you. And then I'm going to go over here to the flower. And again, it's a stock image because I have nothing of a flower to use. And I'm just going to go to the contextual taskbar that's over here. Yours should be open. Usually it's floating at the very bottom. If you don't see anything, it should be under Windows drop-down menu. It is toward the bottom here, called contextual taskbar right there. I just have mine pinned to the very top area that I've talked about numerous times. I'm just going to choose select subject because it's a plain white background. It should have no problem selecting it. But I want to make sure I don't get any kind of white halos maybe around that selection. So what I'm going to do is just quickly go to the select drop-down menu, and let's come down to modify, and I'm going to contract that selection by 2 or 3 pixels. I think 2 pixels should be enough on this one. And it just, visually you can't see it because there's a resolution in that, but it moved everything in 10 pixels to make it as a tighter selection. And I'm just going to do Control J, Command J to Mac, and I copied up that selection right here. So I'm turning off the background layer, and this is the selection right there. Now what I'm going to do is move that into the background. So I'm going to click and drag, move it over here, drop it in. I'm going to resize that with Control T or Command T on a Mac. Let's just fill it up. And again, this is going to be very subjective. You make this as big or small as you want. You're the artist on this. I'm just going to make sure it's big enough so we can see it. And then again, I'm playing with options here because this is where you start playing with your own flavor and what you want to do. I would like some of that, yellowish or orange color to come into the petals and stuff. So I would play around with different blending modes to do that. And just to be quick, I'm going to go with multiply as a blending mode. And again, you might choose something else because this is, you're the artistic, person that's going to decide what you like. And I'm going to do Control J or Command J to duplicate that, which makes that pop a little bit more. Let me do it again. Control J, I'm just copying that layer. Command J on a Mac. And just keep doing it until you get, hey, that looks good right there. Okay, now what I want to do is, you are guessing at liquify, but I need to have everything consolidated on a single layer because these are all separate. And if I do liquify, it's only going to affect that layer. It's not going to affect the things, below it. So if I'm at the very top here, if I did a visible stamp layer, which I've talked about so many times, Shift, Control, Alt, E like an Edward, that consolidates everything you see visibly from this point down that has the eyeballs active right there. It consolidates it all to a single layer. If you're on a Mac, it's a Shift Command Option E like an Edward. And again, you'll get that visible stamp layer. Now when I use anything, it applies it just to that layer. And by the way, I just forgot to mention this. If you didn't see the video about the artwork done on a gray background that I was inspired by Joel Grimes, I'll put the link in the show notes, and just in case you missed that. Okay, so back to this. If I go to Filter drop-down menu here and find a feature in there called Liquify, and when the dialog box opens up, now you have different tools here. Like there's a push forward. If I do this, this is what it's doing. This one right here is more of a refine tool. And again, you could play with these tools. A smooth tool, it's smooth out. Well, I really didn't do anything to smooth out, but there is a twirl feature. And let's make this pretty big. And what you do is I'm going to click in this section right here, and I'm just going to click down with my index finger on the mouse, and I'm not going to let go. It's constantly being pressed down, and it does a swirl effect that looks like this. Okay, and then when you think, okay, I got it, I let go, and I'm done. So you could do that there, and maybe make this smaller, and then do that again, and just wait for, maybe a half a minute or so to get what you want, and you just go all over. And then if you want to, maybe choose like the bloat tool, and if I go there, it bloats up that area. If I want to go to the center part, bloat that up. And those are definite options that you could use. And then just choose OK to accept that. But I'm going to cancel that because I'm going to do this in a different way to give you some choices and options to do. So I'm going to cancel out of that. And another technique that could be used is if I choose a different filter here, and this is going to be called, let's see, we're going to go to filter drop-down menu. We'll go to distort, and we're going to choose something called, where would that be? Twirl right there. Okay, so this is what twirl does. This is what it looks like here. And if I move this to the right, it's twirling clockwise versus counterclockwise. So you can make this decision, based on what you want to do. Click on OK, and I'm going to get that. Well, that's not what I want. It doesn't look like the image that you sent me. Well, excuse me. I've got to grab some water here. So sorry about that. All right, sorry, I had to clear my throat. So if I grab the rectangle marquee tool, and for the new people, if you didn't know this, it doesn't matter what selection tool that you choose. If I do like a click and drag in this area, the rule of a selection, and again, it doesn't matter if I use a lasso tool or whatever you do next only affects the selected area. So just example, if I choose B for brush, and I grab my paintbrush and I can see my chip color black, if I try to paint over here, it won't let me paint. I can only paint in the selected area. Okay, let me undo that. If I did Control J, Command J at a Mac, what's it doing? It's going to copy up just that, let me pull that up, just that selection. So again, let me undo that. The rule is whatever you do as a selection, whatever tool you use to make a selection, whatever you do next only affects that selected area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that filter. And by the way, if you want to use the same setting, not sure if I do, but you'll see twirl there. It remembers the last setting I just did. So if you don't want that setting, you're going to have to go back down to distort and choose twirl. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to just choose twirl. And then when I make the adjustments, so let me push this more to the right, it should, in theory, apply it just to the selected area. So when I click on OK, there you go. So let me deselect that. And so that's another way that you can approach this. And you can make the boxes, the selections bigger or smaller based on that. So what I was thinking, let me undo all that. There's my selection with the rectangle marquee tool. Could I do this? Hold the Shift key down, and I'm going to go in different areas. Now, my Shift key is down. I'm not going to let go. I'm going to let go of the mouse, and I'm going to go in different areas like this. And I wonder if I can apply the twirl in all of those 4 areas at once, right, to save some time. So if I go to Filter drop-down menu, and I'm going to manually come down to the Distort feature and choose Twirl, and then click on OK, and that did not work. So I'm going to undo that. So I'm just doing Control Z or Command Z on a Mac to undo my steps. So the point is, just to save time, with that selection there, I'm just going to go to Filter drop-down menu, Twirl, let it do its job. Let's go over to this section right, I don't know, here, make this maybe a little bit smaller, and you just go to Filter, Twirl. So it's going to use the same settings. And let's make a small one over here. And let's go to Filter drop-down menu, choose Twirl. And there we go. Let's make maybe a big one over here. And then again, Filter, Twirl, and just apply those in different areas. Control D or Command D on a Mac just to deselect that. So you might want to try that and play with it, but also maybe combine that with now going to Filter and then come down to Liquify and then go into Liquify and play with different areas and modify stuff. Maybe you want to push things around. So you make this really big and you're going to stretch things out. Don't have to do exactly with the image you sent me, but play with this. There's a lot of creativity to come up with something very unique and different. And I'm going to cancel that. But again, you could do Control T, Command T on a Mac. That's the free transform tool. You can right mouse click and say, hey, let's do a warp. And let's go in there and let's warp this, right? Go for it. I mean, this is all experimental, what you want to do here, and just have fun. So there's no set rule here. It's all visually basic on what you want to apply and do in your image. So I'm going to accept that with enter on the keyboard. And hopefully this helps you a little bit, because again, what I want to, by the way, if you people are learning anything here, please do me a favor, and that is like the video, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and hit that notification bell. The next time I upload a video, you'll get notified on that. But Gina, again, play with this and experiment with different ideas. Make it your own. That's what I'm trying to emphasize. What I like about what you did was you found something that triggered a curiosity, like, wow, I like that. How did they do that? What are some of the things? And again, don't get focused on getting 100% accurate, right? It inspires you to put in your own flavor and do things. So again, hopefully this is helpful for you. I'm going to end this video right now by saying what I always say most of the time, and that is, let's get that camera out. Let's make mistakes. Why? Because we learn from making mistakes. But you know what? How about diving into something like this? And don't worry about making mistakes, because we learn from making mistakes. Puts us in motion. So again, think creatively, out of the box, and I mean literally out of the box. Until next time, see ya.